Auntie Nancy be a part of the story.
I'm ready to read with you.
Meet Nancy Clancy. She believes that more is always better when it comes to being fancy. And no one knows fancy like Nancy.
Bonjour, friend. I love being fancy. My favorite color is fuchsia. That's a fancy way of saying purple. I like to write my name with a pen that has a plume. That's a fancy way of saying feather. I adore speaking French because everything in French sounds fancy. I'm going to need your help to keep everything fancy. When I ask you a question, call out the answer. Let's go!
Nobody in Nancy's family is fancy at all. They never even ask for sprinkles.
There's a lot they don't understand. They don't understand that lace-trimmed socks do help me to play soccer better. And they don't understand that sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick in frilly toothpicks. I think my family should be fancy too. Let's get started. Say, time to get fancy.
Time to get fancy.
It sure is time to get fancy. My doll Maribel and I are glamorous every single day.
Nancy gets an idea that is stupendous. That's a fancy word for great. Maybe Nancy can teach her family how to be fancy. She makes an ad for lessons on how to be fancy and sticks it on the fridge.
There's my family now. They saw the ad and want to get started right away. Help me teach them how to be fancy. Which hat is fancier? The baseball cap or the bird hat?
The bird hat.
It's all about accessorizing. I have a lot to teach my family about that.
The trouble is Nancy's family doesn't own any fancy clothes. That's okay. Nancy will find something for them to wear.
What is that fancy word? Oh, yes, accessories. Ooh la la, my family is going to be posh. That's a fancy word for fancy. What should my mom put on first? A pretty bracelet or a feather boa?
Bracelet.
Good choice. A sparkly bracelet with lots of jingly beads would make my mom super fancy.
Now that the family is all dressed up, Nancy's mom thinks they should go somewhere fancy tonight. Her dad suggests taking the limousine to dinner at the King's Crown.
Wow! My parents are acting fancier already. We're ready to go to the King's Crown. My dad says he could be our chauffeur. That's a fancy word for driver. But it's such a nice day out. Should we walk to dinner or take the limousine?
Limousine.
It doesn't matter how we get there, does it? I'm ready to eat a gourmet meal. That means an extra fancy dinner.
When Nancy and her family arrive at the King's Crown, everyone in the restaurant looks up.
Nancy, darling, who are you wearing?
Nancy, over here!
Smile for us, Nancy.
They probably think we're movie stars, but we are just here for a dinner that is magnifique. That's French for magnificent. Let's pretend we're famous. Say, no autographs, please.
No autographs, please.
It would be fabulous to be famous. I would wear my fanciest clothes every day.
Nancy is so proud of her whole family. They eat with their pinkies up and call each other darling.
Being this fancy is fabulous. We're so glamorous, we even wear our sunglasses indoors. But wait, where are my sunglasses? Of course, my sunglasses are there on the table. I'm so glad I didn't lose them.
After they finish their pizza, Nancy's mom says for dessert, let's have parfaits. That's French for ice cream sundaes.
Amazing! My mother knows French. Ooh la la! Our parfaits are ready. Merci.
Your shoe is untied.
I didn't hear what he said. What did that nice man say? I tripped over my shoelace. Everyone is looking at me. I don't feel fancy anymore. I want to go home.
When the Clancy family gets home, Nancy cleans herself up and puts on her dressing gown. Those are fancy words for bathrobe.
I feel much better. Thanks for helping me teach my parents how to be fancy. I think they finally got it. Now I'm ready for a parfait. We need fancy toppings. Should we start with rainbow sprinkles, chocolate sauce, or whipped cream?
Whipped cream.
I'm going to have all 3 toppings on my parfait.
After eating their marvelous parfait, Nancy thanks her parents for being fancy. As they tuck her into bed, Nancy, Dad says, I love you. I love you, her mom says.
And all I say back is, I love you. Because there isn't a fancy or better way of saying that. Thanks for all your help today. It was so much fun being fancy with you. Good night.